Hello everybody and welcome to another favourite five, my own art series where I choose 5 of my favourite colours from each art medium, and this time it's 5 plus an honourable mention. That happens quite a bit, but I choose 5 colours, swatch them for you, and then make a little sketch to show you how I would use them. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. I mean, like, even if you're not new, but if you're new, very, very welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. It's so nice to see you and have your support. It means more than I can say. Yes, so the favourite 5. This time I'm going to talk to you about Derwent Inktense. Now, Derwent Inktense, grab some here. This is not an ad for Derwent. It looks like it, but it isn't. And these pencils are not supplied. I bought them. I have found 5, and I've found an honourable mention because 5, they've got such a lovely range, these Inktense pencils, and quite a few colours. So choosing 5 was more difficult than it had to be, but I have come up with 5 plus 1. So that's my plus 1. These are a watercolour pencil and they have a massive pigment payoff. They're really, really rich, and a little bit goes a long way. I think if I had to find something to say that is wrong with them, it's that they don't have any pastel colours. I would love some pastel colours in this range, because things like skies and sometimes just delicate flowers, sunsets and things like sunrises, things like that. I mean, you can manage, but it would be nice to have some. However, what we have got is super, and I give thanks every day for the day I discovered them. My favourite 5 colours, like I said, difficult. They're going to be natural colours that I can do things with. These are the colours that I reach for again and again. So the first one is Oak, which is a nice green. It's a brownie green, actually. Then the next in the green is Leaf Green, which is a really, really rich, lovely one. Oh my goodness, I could have had 2 honourable mentions. I forgot an indigo. No, we had an indigo last week. I'm going to be thankful with what I've got. A dark mink, which is a grey. It's a lovely warm grey, but with a purpley pink undertone. You'll see in a second. Sienna Gold, which is a nice sort of gold oxidey colour, and a Sicilian Yellow. So all of those, I love those. And Sepia Ink is my honourable mention. This is a brown that's a grey, and it's as dark and deep and mysterious as you could want a nice warm browny, dark, warm grey. I love it, and it's just fabulous. I've also got with me my Derwent battery operated eraser. This is because when I use these, I have a particular technique that, as far as I know, I've developed myself. I certainly haven't seen it anywhere else, so I'm having it. It's called soft Scraffito. And if you have a look on my Patreon, if you like what you see here today, please do consider becoming a Patreon, because all of this goes into a lot more detail on there. So this soft Scraffito method that I've developed, I use this battery operated eraser. You probably could use a regular one, however I find this works best. The Derwent brand one is not expensive. This one cost me about €12 3 years ago. So it's probably a little bit more now, but for considering what it does and what I can do with it and how much I use it every day, honestly, it's really, really worth the spend. So if you're considering, or anything like, if you have a birthday coming up or anything like that, consider this for the top of the list. So what can these guys do? Well, first of all, you're going to need some water. So I've got my water here, and you are going to need some sort of brush. I'm going to use my number 10 Dome Blender by Deco Art Traditions. Love these brushes because I can make scrubby effects without worrying about the tips. You don't want something, sometimes, again, this is for the sort of mixed media work that I do, and I am a mixed media artist, so do bear with there. Because of the sort of work that I do, I like to use my brushes to get special effects, and sometimes that means scrubbing and anyone who makes brushes would need a lie down after watching. So I'm using something where I don't have to worry about the tip, and you'll see why when we get to the sketch. Oh, if I don't push it off the table in the meantime. So let us go through the colours. Oak is my first one, and I'm just going to pop them in, and then we will wet them all out together. Like I said, you can use these without wetting them out. They're just pencils if you don't wet them out, and there's still just such a beautiful amount of colour. It's fabulous. Dark mink. This is this grey purpley sort of colour. Love that too. Let's wet those out just to see how much space we've got. Brush doesn't look like if it's very clean. Big slap for that. I've been filming a Patreon tutorial this morning and using gouache. Okay, this is the oak. It's actually quite a brown, and as you can see, this is my Stillman and Burn sketchbook. It wets out, excuse me, and it wets out almost perfectly. The Stillman and Burn sketchbook is good for all sorts of media, which is why I bought it. This one's leaf green, that nice dark colour, and it's white paper, hot pressed by the looks of it, because it's quite smooth and it's really good for these sorts of things. And this is the mink. So as you can see, the usual lovely rich palette. Let me just grab, sorry, don't usually walk away from the camera while I'm filming, but I did forget to say to you that I can show you some of the things that I've done with these Inktense pencils, so that you can get the idea of what sort of things you can do with them. And just whilst we've got this little swatch going here, as you can see, these dark colours and the richness of the colours, they're absolutely unsurpassed. All of this, these are the colours I've used in these pictures. Not that one, that's a new one. Haven't had that one. The bricks. Bricks are coming up too for a tutorial on my Patreon, because I had a request from one of my students, and I think, yeah, I would love to do a brick tutorial. They're such fun. But I also love the way you can do trees and bits and pieces and just textures. So yeah, all of these are done. Not all of them, that wasn't. This is all of the others apart from that one are done with Inktense pencils and a few other bits and bobs. So yes, I did want to poke that in, and I had almost forgotten about it. It's a Friday, and that will have a lot to do with it. The next one is Sicilian Yellow, and then we have Sienna Gold, and finally my honourable mention, which is Sepia Ink. It's as dark and dangerous as you could want a dark colour. Probably not as dark as a black would be, but almost. And I just love it. It's just so rich. It's the Sienna Gold. Sicilian Yellow, sorry. This one here is Sienna Gold. And this one is my honourable mention Sepia Ink. I mean, look at that. It just keeps going. It's just beautiful. So those would be my favourite colours. So as you saw from my sketchbook, and I think it's important to see these things in the wild. It's, you know, when you see them used, it's totally different. I'm going to make a very, very quick sketch for you and show you what I would do with them. I've sketched this out just very, very quickly with some other watercolour pencils that are very light. And first of all, I tend to prepare a bit of an underlayer. Just fairly scribbly. And this underlayer will be revealed, hopefully. If this bombs completely, that will be a good learning curve, because I've never used this Stillman and Burn sketchbook for this medium. I usually use the one I just showed you. The reason why I have chosen the Stillman and Burn is because all the other in this series are in there. Okay. Just get some colour down at this point. Lots of scribbling going on at this stage. Keep the orange a little bit there, especially in this section here. Okay, so the first thing now is to, oh, forgot the sky. It really is Friday. The other thing is our son is coming home this evening, and we only see him once or twice a year. So, because he lives in Britain and we live on the continent. So it is quite exciting. A bit of oak as well. Just going to do a small amount there. Because I'm a mixed media artist, I will come in with other things, so there'll be some colour pencil in a second. But for starters, we have that. Now, clean brush, get the sky in. It's a little bit darker than I would like. Normally, I mean, my challenge here is to pick some colours and not have all of them. And unfortunately, I am not an artist who likes to work with a limited palette, although I did find this morning that I'm more and more doing that and actually working with less colours, even though they're not quite as restricted as this. Okay, so get all that down. And then this has to be quite well dried. As well, quite well wash my brush as well while I'm here. So I shall dry this and I shall see you in a couple of minutes. Right, that's had drying time and it's really quite crispy dry. The way I feel it normally is, or tell normally if it's dry, is I feel it. And if it is warm or room temperature, then it's usually dry enough, depending on the technique you're using. If it's still cool or there are any cool spots in it, it's not dry. So that's a rule of thumb that you can actually use quite a bit. It works quite well. Okay, let us continue now with the overlayer. So wanting to preserve some of the highlights we've got. Just make a little road there, and then in with leaf green. Actually, yes, leaf green. A couple of the colours I normally like are missing because of, well, my own fault for making it difficult, but it works. It's okay. See what we produce. It might be absolute rubbish, doesn't matter, it's in a sketchbook, and that's the point of a sketchbook. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just scribbling the first lot of colours in, some heavier, some lighter. You have to have enough pigment in order for a soft Scraffito effect to work. So this is just more scribbling really. And then so yeah, right, get all that colour down. At the moment it is just putting the colour where the colour goes, and making sure there's enough of it. This is my dark sepia ink. Goodness, that's helpful. Nice. Doesn't matter, it'll be all right. And some more oak here. A bit more here. Being a nominally lighter green than the leaf green, it will work quite well. Like I said, I don't know how this paper's going to go, so this is a real experiment for both of us. This could be the biggest fail in history. Right, so now go back in again and wet that down. The first layer being dry, that is what's stained the paper. This second layer is not staining the paper, it's staining the first layer. So that means it's not going to sink in and we can remove some. And that's the basics of how my soft Scraffito technique works. And I've called it soft Scraffito on purpose. If any of you have ever done pottery and know about the carving techniques that are used in pottery, that was what I had in mind. My normal textbook is good grief. I've got this thing at the moment, I'm calling my sketchbook a textbook all the time. It might be time I went back and did some more study. I have enough. I'm not. I'm doing this now. Right, so just some texture there. And once again, we dry that off. There is a method to this madness, trust me. So this has got to be quite dry as well. I shall return very shortly. Right, we are dry. We are ready for the exciting bit, which is the reveal using the battery operated eraser. There is a little bit of noise, it's not huge, so do bear with. And now what I'm going to do, should be able to go over, it's a little bit reminiscent of the dentist actually. Apologise for that as well if you're easily triggered. What I'm doing now is I'm selectively removing some of the overlayer, allowing that to shine through. Sort of trees, get in between those trees there to get some glow happening. The sun is the source here. Oh, good grief. I'm so sorry, gosh, clumsy much. This is the source of the light, is the sun that's coming into this sunset sort of area. So that's what we want to do now, is to increase any highlights around this area. And the simple trick is knowing what to leave behind and what to take out, which is the whole point of this method. But it does work. It's better on the Marabou sketchbook. Yes, not textbook, sketchbook. And two things at once here. It's a horrid noise, and I wish it didn't make it. There you go. Just clean up some of these spaces now. That's really what's left behind is quite important, because you can see there are sort of the rudiments of trees starting to happen here now. It makes a mess as well, so bear that in mind if you go down this route. And just make tree-like shapes here in the foliage, in the canopy. Then we have got this little track here, which we can carve out a bit. It's actually quite fun, because when you put you've got something in mind as a rule, most of us have. And when you put the first lot of stuff down, the first layer, sorry, doing two things at once now, and the old brain's just not up to it. When you put the first layer down, you've got some idea of where you're supposed to be going, but by the time you put the next layer over the top, it can completely obliterate it, which means, you know, having a good reference image is good, or if you're painting on plein air, which I'm not 100% sure that this technique is perfect for that, but I would love to know if you do use these outside and so forth. Get a nice big soft brush, or brush anyway. Yeah, and you'll basically obliterate everything you had in mind, but then you can carve new shapes out and you can make it look a little bit different and find them again. And when you move the top layer of Inktense around on it, it creates its own sort of shapes again. So you can find the trees, and I've got a short on that actually right here on YouTube that shows how I find trees in the mess. So basically having all of these blobby shapes and then saying, well, that looks like a tree, or that looks like a tree. So what we have so far is accidentally some sort of light coming through the trees, which is caused by our substrate layer. Next, I would probably use my Derwent Drawing Yellow Ochre, and just to prove that this is not a shameless plug, my Caran d'Ache Green Ochre. Those two are a favourite for bringing out highlights and things in like that. So here, just sort of big up this glow by going off the edge there a bit with the Yellow Ochre Derwent Drawing. Like I said, mixed media artist, can't help myself. Get that going there. Here as well, but you can always bring this in too, just to put a little bit of colour back there. Then increase these a little tiny bit, because what can be quite helpful in those spaces, I like the way that's sort of happening to cause some glow on the foliage, on the undercarriage here. Undergrowth, we got to undergrowth. Oh, like I said, I need to give up, it's the weekend. See, there won't be any coming this way from this side, because I suspect the sun might be in an area like this here for this. And you might consider, another favourite of mine is Forest, which is a Derwent one. And then you can put some of these branches and trees back in over the top. Just increase it, because you've got this lovely soft glow in the background. So doing that sort of increases the oomph factor a little bit. That sort of thing. So here, might have a bit of a shadow along here, since the main part of the glow is along there. Because we want that track back. So for that, I might even head to my Derwent Drawing Chinese White, just to bring back, I had a bit of a track in mind. There's a forest at the end of our road where we walk quite often, and this is sort of it. So we've got that there. And the same on this other side. There might be a little bit of highlight coming through the trees, but it won't be so much because it's really on this side that it's coming in from. Yeah, so as you can see, you can do quite a nice painting with a couple of, quite a nice sketch with a couple of Derwent Inktense pencils, and then some coloured pencil afterwards, which I always use. I think that's about what I would do there. This one is a Goldfarber Aqua Dual Marker Terracotta, because a little bit of glazing can help as well, just here and there. And I will smudge that out with my finger. Just gives a little bit of colour where it's gone a little bit dull. And I don't want too much here in the corners. This is very much sort of in the shadows. So don't really want to go in there with any of this. Keep the sun focused in that one area. If you find, see the sky here, not only have I managed to make a mark on the sky, but the sky hasn't completely wetted out. And once they are dry, that's it, you've had your chance. And because it's darker than I wanted, with my Derwent drawing pencil, I can go back in and push that colour right back. And also just go over the edge of the yellow and the yellow here. Because, of course, an excellent way to make things disappear into the background is to use some sky colour in the mix. So by going over that like that, going over the sky like that quite smoothly, it knocks that colour back and makes a little bit less pinky grey. It's still there and it's still glowing out underneath, but it's not quite as prevalent. So yeah, I mean, you can come back then and go over some of these where I've taken the colour out. Then I've got that glazing underlayer and I'm going over the top with my Caran d'Ache green ochre, which I absolutely adore. And on here too. Again, looking for organic shapes. What can you see? Where is there a shape that looks like if it's catching the light? That sort of thing. If you need to, you can go back in as well. See, there's a sort of a shape in there. I can see a dark bit, so we could make that a bit of an extension of one of the trunks. Then take some more off here. A little bit wherever it's catching the light. Go over it with coloured pencil. You don't have to have coloured pencil on this. I do because I enjoy mixed media work, so I tend to use a hell of a lot of different things. I would also almost certainly use something like this Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen with the food nib in black, because I can draw some really fine trunks in here. And you could come up into the top canopy and put some branches in. We're obviously in summer here, at least here in Europe where I live. I did use my forest pencil to make some, which is also an idea, but these will make a lot sharper and more defined trunk. Okay, probably about that. I'd leave it alone because I'll fiddle and ruin it. You watch. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that. Please consider joining my Patreon if you like my work and would like to learn more about this and more about these techniques. I have a hell of a lot of different techniques that I use, a lot of them that I develop myself, so you know, you won't see them elsewhere, I'm happy to say at this point. And yeah, this Inktense pencils are definitely worth the spend, and if you're wondering about which colours to get, then these are my favourite 5 plus my honourable mention. And just to recap, they were dark mink, oak, sepia ink, leaf green, Sicilian yellow and sienna gold. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again next week at some point, probably later on in the week. Normally I post on a Monday, but we've got so much happening this Monday, I thought I'm not going to sort of miss this upload, so I will do it on the Friday, and you've got all weekend to look at it then. So happy weekend to everybody. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and join us over on Patreon if you like. Links in the description box. Everything's there, and see you next week. Bye.